Evaluating him will be Carol. Carol, can you take a moment and share with us what kinds of things that we should be listening for in Ivan's speech?
Well, he is working out of his storytelling manual, and his goal tonight is to tell a story without reading it and without acting it out. And I said, oh, that's tough. How many of us get up and act it out? So he's supposed to tell us a story tonight.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay, this is Ivan Conway's first speech out of the advanced manual, which is called Storytelling, one of the advanced manuals. He recently completed his Competent Communicator designation, and this is his second speech towards completing his Advanced Communicator Bronze. Please help me welcome Ivan Conway and the Law of Three. The Law of Three, Ivan Conway.
How many people have ever been to Africa? Raise your hand. One. Excellent. Well, a long, long time ago, there was a couple that lived in Africa, and their whole life was based around having children. They wanted to have a child and prayed and prayed. Finally, they were blessed with a child, and it was a girl, and so they were very happy. And they named this child Africa. And they wanted this child to grow up to be very beautiful, very elegant. So they pampered this child. Anything that the child wanted, they gave it to him. And they just always focused on pampering this child, lifting him up. They weren't very disciplined with the child. The child could just pretty much do anything they wanted. They didn't really force him to study or to do anything that normal kids would have to do. All they wanted this child was to just walk around in splendor and beauty and have just a fun time in life. And so the child grew up, and true enough, she was gorgeous. I mean, drop dead gorgeous. Fine as May wine. There's no question about it. Her beauty spread throughout the whole village. And in fact, it spread throughout the land. And it was time that she thought she should be getting married. And so many of the guys that were in her village, they all thought she was wonderful. She just looked so pretty. So they wanted to marry her. So they would go to her father and they'd ask her, can we marry her? Ask for her hand in marriage. And some of them had done pretty well in life and they had a lot of money. She turned them all down. She said they were too ugly. She didn't want to have anything to do with anybody that was ugly. She didn't care how much money they had. She just, forget them. We don't want to deal with them. So her father knew some other people that were from other villages, and her beauty was just known throughout the whole country. She was so happy that she had so many suitors that were trying to marry her, but none of them were handsome enough for her. Because she was pretty, she wanted her husband to be pretty. Well, after a while, it didn't look like there was going to be anybody that was going to be good enough for Absalom. And finally, her beauty spread beyond the African continent into the spirit world. And there was a spirit in the spirit world named Skull. And he heard about her beauty, and he said, I want her to be my wife. And so Skull was very old, and he was very ugly. He knew no way could he get her hand. So what he decided to do was, he went to 4 of his friends. And in the spirit world, you can do things that you can't do here. And so he went to the spirit world, and one of his friends was very handsome. And he said, I need to borrow your head for just a little while so I can go and win the heart of Aphrodite. And so his friend took off his head and he gave it to him. And he had a handsome face. He went to another friend and he said, I need your arms because you're muscular. You're like Atlas. When she sees those arms, she's going to marry me right off the spot. And so his friend said, yes, you can borrow my arms. And he went to another friend and he got his body. And he went to another friend and he got his leg. And when he looked in the mirror, he said, ooh, no way she's going to be able to say no to this. So he journeyed to the land where Aphion was, and he went to the marketplace where she often visited. And she had heard after just a few hours that there was a handsome stranger that was in the marketplace. And she said, well, I bet he's not handsome enough for me. So she went to the marketplace. she saw the skull and she about fell over backwards. She was in love. It was love at first sight. She said, boy, I want to make him my husband. He walked up to her and he introduced himself. And just after a few short minutes, she invited him to go meet her parents. Can you believe it? I mean, this is it. So he went to go meet her parents, and he told them that he was very wealthy, and he had riches, and he was a prince, and he could do very well by her. And the parents were not so fast. They said, whoa, wait a minute. We need to find out a little bit more about this person. Affion would hear nothing about it. She said, this is the most handsome man on the earth, and he's rich, he's a prince, and I'm going to be a princess, and one day I'll be queen, and you're just trying to stop me from all my glory. And so parents said, don't do this, it's too fast, we've only known this guy a couple days. She wouldn't hear of it. She said, I'm going to go get married. I don't care what you think. So she did. She got married, and then the skull told her that he wanted to take her to his kingdom. And her parents said, wait, just stay here for at least 3 months. She had heard nothing else. She said, I'm going to be a princess. So they took off, and they started walking. Then all of a sudden, as they got out of the side of the village, a wind came and caught them up, spun them up in the air. And Africa was just frightened to death. She didn't know what to think. And then all of a sudden, it was spinning so fast that she actually passed out. She didn't know what had happened. And when she came to, she was being held in the arms by her handsome husband, Skull. He said, now you're in the spirit world with me. So when she was in the spirit world with him, she thought everything was going to be fine. But shortly after she woke up, the Skull's friends came to him and said, hey, I want my head back. So he took his head. And his other friends came and said, I want my legs back. I want my body back. I want my arms back. And all of a sudden, she saw what she really had. She didn't have the handsomeness as him. She had an old, ugly person, the worst person she'd ever seen in her life. She cried and cried and cried. And she said, oh, this is horrible. Take me back home. Take me home. And he wouldn't hear anything of it. He said, there's no way. You can never leave the spirit world once you're here. No one can take you out of the spirit world but another spirit person, and we're not going to do it. He took her to his house. It wasn't a palace. It was the worst place she'd ever seen. It was dirty and dungy. She got there, and she said, oh my God. Well, the Skull had his mother was there, and she was very old, and she was almost on her deathbed. And Affion was very, very taken by her. And she felt so sorry for her that she had to live her last days in such an awful place. So she started working around the house, cleaning up for her, cooking for her, just doing everything for her, waiting on her hand and foot. So the Skull's mother really began to like Affion. And she said, Affion, I'm going to do you a favor. Because you've been so nice to me, I'm going to send you back to your homeland. And so Affion was very happy. And she said, well, that'd be good. That's what I really want. She said, but when you go back, you have to promise me that you will use wisdom in all of your future decisions. And she said, yes, I'll do it. And so the mother prayed, and a hurricane came. And she stopped the hurricane. She said, that wind's too harsh. It will kill you. It will never get you home. Then a gentle breeze came. And when the gentle breeze came, what happened was that it lifted her up and it put her to sleep. When she woke back up, the gentle breeze let her down back in her homeland. And her father saw her. He was so happy because he thought she was dead. He went out and he greeted her, and he was so happy she was there. The skins that he had on his back, he placed them down in front of her so she could walk back to the house without even letting her feet touch the ground. Her mother was rejoicing so much. They had a party that lasted for 8 days, and they celebrated her homecoming. And when they told the story of what had happened to the chief and to the councilman at the village, they decided that they were going to have a law. They made it the law of three. Whenever you're going to make a great decision, they said the first thing that you need to do is you need to do nothing for 2 days. Because if it's a great idea today, it'll be a great idea in 2 days. A lot of times we get good ideas and we say, oh, eureka, that's it, it's great. Let's do it right now. If it's that great, in 2 days it'll still be great. And that holds true just as much for today as it did then. On the third day, which is why they call it the law of three, you were not only to look at the physical aspects of what you were going to do, which will also include the emotional, the spiritual, and the mental aspects of what you're going to do, and see if those things all were in harmony so that they would work for you. Hence, the Law of Three was started. Affion applied it. She met several of her suitors. When she did, she applied the Law of Three, and she selected a great husband this time, and they lived happily ever after.
I don't know about you guys, but I was on the edge of my seat, no soporific stature there. Our next presenter this evening will be Bascom Morton.